Greetings! Today on my Focus RS, I'm installing the Mountune intercooler. Alright then, of course, before we get to the actual installation of our brand new Mountune V2 intercooler made by Pro Alloy, we have to, of course, get the old one out, which means getting the car up onto our race ramps. Alright, first thing then, I'm going to remove both the under trays. So that is this sort of foamy under tray first. So we're going to remove all of these T30 Torx screws, and then there are also several little plastic push clip things. So these just use a flathead screwdriver to pop them off, and there are also a couple in the middle right here. So just go all the way around the first under tray and remove all of the fixings. Alright, that is the rear under tray off. You should be left with 8 of these T30 Torx screws and 4 of these plastic ones, and that is that. Now we're going to take off this front splash guard. Okay, then the first part of the process to remove the front under tray or splash guard is to remove more T30 Torx screws like this one. So again, we just go along the edge all the way to this far end and then along the back edge. Next then, at the edge on both sides, there's another T30 Torx screw, and then there's another little pop clip thing here. Now, if you've still got your wheels on, if you're on ramps like I am, it's quite a tight space in here, so you're never going to get a screwdriver in there. You're certainly never going to get a drill in there with your T30. I've got a 3/8 Torx adapter thing, which is like the perfect size. So it shouldn't really be in that tight, so it should be absolutely fine just to use something small like this, which as you can see, it is. Just like that. And then the little pop clips, if you get in between the two bits, that should help. And there we go, that's the front bit. And then the rear bit should just pull right out. Alrighty then, next thing is to remove these little screws that are holding onto the front of the splash guard. These are push clips that have a little screw up the middle. So what we need to do is we need to unscrew and then also pull the clip out at the same time. There's 7 of these. There are others here that are holding the front splitter on, but don't take those out. We're just taking the 7 out that are in the body colored bits here. So just go along the front and take all of those out. Start off with the starhead screwdriver, get it loose a bit. Then we wriggle the trim tool in, and then it comes out. Alright, last bit then is to separate the bumper part, the outer bumper part here from the splash guard bit here. So we just kind of have to pull and sort of push, and that should come out and sort of downwards as well, like that, if you can see. And then we need to do that on both sides. And then with that done, the splash guard should release if we slide it towards the rear of the car. Well, there seems to be a bunch of rocks stuck in between the bumper and the splash guard, but oh well. Alright then, now I'm going to move on to headlight removal. So the first thing is there are 2 screws. You can either use a flathead or you can use your T30 Torx again. Right, next we want to get a decent grip on the headlight, give it a kind of yank up, be careful not to bash it off like this little corner of the bodywork and stuff like that. And then we need to disconnect the wiring harness, which is a little bit fiddly. You need to pull a little thing up and then it just comes out. So there we go, that is the unit released. So around here. There we go, that's it off. Okay then, next we are back to our T30 Torx bit, and we're going to remove 5 more screws. 3 in the middle of this plastic thing, so 1 right here, 1 there, and 1 there. And then we shimmy around, and these sort of silvery looking ones, 1 on either side, so 1 here, dooby-dooby-doo, and 1 here. Alright, now we are going to remove the bonnet latch cable. So we just sort of unclip it, and then there we go. So that's that out of there, so that should be loosey-goosey, and this should be away. Alright, next up it's these 2 push clips, so here and here. Now we gotta remove the caps on our headlight washer jet bios. So we gently just pull these out and then we got it unclipped. So the way we do this, be very, very careful and tilt it forward and sort of up, and it should just clip. Keep going, give it a little wiggle, and off it comes. And then gently just let it retract in there, and that's that. Right, then it's pretty hard to see it on camera, but there's another little T30 torque screw that's just right in here. It's holding the wheel arch liner on, so I'm going to use the same little tool that I used whenever we were doing the front splash guard, just to get up in there. And it's, again, it's not in super tight, so this little T30 Torx 3/8 adapter thing is pretty much the perfect tool actually for this. And there it is, that's it out. So do that on both sides. And then we need to get this little pop clip out. It's holding our two panels together, it's just like right here. So well, I'm gonna need to set the camera down, but it's kind of like going in that way, but it's exactly the same as all the other pop clips that we've taken out before, so the exact same process. Alright then, now from underneath where the headlights normally sit, there's this sort of tab thing, and we need to just sort of pull this upwards and sort of disconnect from the bit that is in the bumper. There we go, and then just sort of, you can see it's now disconnected, so we do that on both sides. Alright then, now we want to go to where the two panels join, and we want to kind of disconnect. So we're sort of pulling the bumper that way and sort of pushing the other part that way to try and just disconnect them. There we go. There we are, so that is it out. You can see these clips that were in there. So we want to release the other side, and then once we do that, the bumper is ready to be removed. Right, this is a better view then for the fog light connection now that I have the actual bumper off. So this is the one that we need to disconnect here. You can see that the wire comes out of it and then splits, and one then goes to the fog light for that side, and then it goes up around to the fog light for the other side. So just need to disconnect this. If you can get your hand up whilst the bumper is still on to disconnect that, then great. If you can get it from above, then great as well. Or you can take the bumper off and then carefully set it down close to the car, because you've got a little bit of slack here, and then disconnect it with the bumper off. And then once you have that off, you can obviously then put the bumper wherever you want to put the bumper whilst we do the rest of the intercooler work. Now that we have the bumper off, we are ready to start taking more bits from underneath behind the bumper off. So now we need to take, again, our trusty T30 Torx bit and remove this screw and this screw, which is holding on this ducting. So these sort of flappy bits in the middle, they're clipped into the chassis sort of there quite loosely, so we'll disconnect that on both sides. Just if you reach in behind and push these two wee tabs together, then it'll just pop right out. Or just give it a little bit of a yank and it'll come right out. Okay then, to get this off then, you can see it's kind of loosely clipped on here, but one thing we do need to note is that this here rubber line that is going to our washers for our headlight jets is sort of connected in around the bottom of this. So whenever we're removing this, if we sort of unclip it kind of thing, and then bring it sort of up and outwards, whilst at the same time unhooking this rubber line, just so that we don't damage this, and then just place that back in there and we're all good. Then repeat that on the other side. Okay, now we're going to loosen the clamps and remove the hose from both sides of the stock intercooler. So I'm using a little 7mm socket on my bendy screwdriver, or you can use a flathead, whatever you find most convenient. So just unscrew to loosen. Alright, now we gotta release the electrical harness for the map sensor, which is just right in here on top of this side of the intercooler. Now, it's gonna be impossible to show you this, but essentially on top there, it's got like a little push tab, so we're gonna push that and then just wriggle it off, and it should come off pretty easy, but it's kind of just in right there. Oh yeah, that's a better angle there, you can see it right there. So just push that little bit on top and then it should come off. Alright then, next on the bottom of the intercooler, we've got two of these, one on either side, which requires an 8mm socket. Alright, we're now ready to remove the intercooler from the car. It's kind of hard to see, but it's sort of like sitting on these little hook things. So what we need to do is sort of like grip the intercooler and push it up a bit, then tilt it with the bottom coming outwards towards you and then out, and that should do the trick. Alright, that is the standard intercooler off. One thing to note, these ducty things are very loosely clipped on the front here, so whenever you're taking it off, if you just sort of give them a wee bit of a ping, it will release. But we're actually going to take these entirely off now as the next stage. So it's not super duper easy to see all the bits, but it's just kind of like, it's just clipped in like here, also sort of up in there, and also down there too. I don't know if you can really see it down in there, the clippy thing, but yeah, it just, I mean, it's not like you can see that it, you know, it just moves real easy. It's not super tight, so just unclip all those clippy things that you can see and then it should come off. Probably easier just to show you it out of the car. So the bottom bit and the middle bit, literally just give those a bit of a yank. The top bit, you can see it's sort of got those like teeth, but it's fairly easy. I was able to reach my finger in there and sort of pry it apart like that kind of, and then just give it a push and it just popped right out. So it turns out this side was actually way more of a pain in the ass to get out. This bit of the cooling pack is just completely in the way, so I ended up just chopping it into bits just to get it out. We're not going to be reusing that, so I don't really care. I mean, if you want to keep it, if you ever plan on going back to stock, then you probably either, if you can't squeeze it out, it just wasn't happening for me, you're probably going to have to dismantle some of this stuff and drop it out in order to remove it in one piece. But for me, I don't really care about it. I'm not going to reuse it ever again, so I just chopped it into bits and removed it. So yeah, at least that's done now and we can move on. Alright then, now we are going to take the MAF sensor from our stock intercooler and we're going to put it into the Mountune intercooler. So this is held on here by a T25 Torx screw. So we just unscrew and then give it a wee bit of a careful yank and it should come right out. So now we want to insert this into the Mountune at the side here. There we go. It has a little rubber O-ring, which is why it's a little bit tricky to get out and to put in, but you just have to be careful. Don't go too much to the sides, just give it progressively a bit more force and it will happen. So now we just need to get a wee screw in here, which Mountune have provided for us. So the screw in the pack that we want to use is the smallest screw and smallest washer. So we just grab those and make sure that our hole is lined up and get it going. And then to tighten, which we don't want to over tighten, just get it nice and snug. That's a 4mm hex or Allen. Okay, that's starting to feel tight, so that is as tight as we need to go. Alright then, now that we are almost ready to put the new intercooler in, I can just do a little side by side. I mean, you can really see how deep the core is on the Mountune versus the core on the stock intercooler, so like it's going to be so much better. Obviously as well, the other point that the stock intercooler has is it has the metal core, but then it has these plastic end bits that are just sort of crimped on. They're just kind of crimped right here versus the properly welded on full alloy setup on the Mountune. Just altogether much nicer, much higher quality, much higher capacity, and ready for more power stages than the stock intercooler, which is going to be hitting its limit pretty much. So yeah, time to get rid of this and get this in. Alright, now it is time to get these brackets onto the new intercooler. So you might think that they're the same initially whenever you look at them, but if you look closer, one says SN and one says SO. whatever that means, maybe near side, offside, I'm not quite sure. But the significant thing about that is that these holes are not at the same level, so you need to put them on the correct side. Now the one that says SO, that is the one that goes on this part here. You secure it to this hole here, which is the same side as your MAF sensor, so SO on this side. So we just line it up there like that, with the edge sort of lining up with this part right here. So we just line that up, and then we get our fixing in. And the fixing that is provided, we use one smallest screw that we had, so this I suppose you would describe as the medium sized screw, basically not the long ones. So just grab 2 of these, 2 washers, and get them secured either side. So that's this one secured. Whenever you're tightening this down, this requires a 5mm Allen or hex bit. Okay, now we need to get some fasteners onto those brackets, onto the top holes. So what we need to do is the stuff that Mountune has given us. So we grab one of these rubber things and one of the really big washers and put that over that like that. And then we get one of our long screws and one of our little washers and put that on there. And then we put that with the bracket in between. So that's what we're talking about there. So we're sort of like loosely on there, but we have that secured, so we just do that there on both sides. Okie dokie, we are looking good. So we have these things, these are called anchor nuts, in case you were wondering. So yes, those are going to be located in this hole here and this hole here. So we need to lift this up, line them up with those holes, and then with these bits, the original mounting bits, they will line up with the bit around here on our new intercooler. And then what we want to do is we want to loosely tighten things. So those ones at the bottom, we're going to use the original 2 bolts, and then we're going to make sure that everything is positioned before we get it tightened up. At this point then, I'm also going to take these caps off the end of the intercooler. I think we're ready to do that, so that we are ready to get our hoses on the ends. In taking those yellow end things off, I've noticed that there's a bit of what you would call metallic swarf. Can you see that on my finger? Just from the manufacturing process. So before I put this on, I'm going to give that a little bit of a wipe out, just to make sure that we don't have any little bits of metal flying around our engine. So yeah, just make sure you have a look and make sure that it is nice and clean. Alright, now that we have the intercooler loosely in place, we're going to go and start tightening things up, and we're going to start with our anchors. So we're going to make sure that that's pushed nicely in, and then tighten that up, and I'm going to use this 5mm hex. They should grip onto our crash beam really nice, and then once we have those secured, then we'll go under and tighten those 8mm at the bottom. Alright then, now that the intercooler is nicely secured in place, we can get our hoses back on. Mountune do provide 2 brand new clamps, so if you're using your stock pipe work, then use the 2 Mountune clamps. I already have the Mountune hoses, and I also got the Mountune clamp set, so I've got the good clamps already. Alrighty, there we go, that is our hoses and clamps back in place, as you can see. So now reconnect our MAF sensor. Now the last thing that we need to do before we put the bumper back onto the car is to put these little blanking plates into the lower grille area. So the way this is going to work is these are going to be behind the honeycomb, but we need to secure them in place by putting them in front of this plastic bit. You can see that there's holes that will fit over the clips, and then we click it back down, and then that should hold it nicely in place. And we do so with the foam bit pointing towards the rear of the car, or pointing towards the intercooler itself. So this one is specifically for this side, and then there's the opposing one for the other side. Alright then, in order to get this bit of plastic up enough, we need to remove these little metal bits, or sort of like toothed onto the plastic bits. So we need to remove this one, this one, this one, and this one. So, I mean, there's no real nice way of doing this. We kind of just have to get our trim tool underneath there and sort of clamp it off. Do be careful though, you don't want to break anything. So once I've got that under there, then I'm just trying to loosen it both sides until it eventually comes off like that. Now all we do is lift this up, slide this in, locate the holes around the plastic clips, make sure that that is nicely in there, and we get this plastic bit back down. Now we get those little metal tooth clip things and push them back down. So the best way that I've found for doing this is sort of just locate it initially and then get a couple of screwdrivers or a couple of small tools and just push both sides simultaneously, and that secures that. So now do that for all the rest of those clips. Okay, that is our little deflectors nicely installed, both sides. Now the last thing actually, before we reinstall the bumper, is we have this other big long bit of foam, which no one actually tells you what to do with, but if we look at the stock intercooler, there's a bit of foam on the bottom, so I'm just going to replicate that. So we're going to go under here. I'll alcohol wipe it first and then just stick it on, and then we'll get the bumper on. Now we just have to reinstall the bumper in the exact reverse that we took it off. Well, there we go, that is the installation complete of the Mountune intercooler on my Focus RS. I think it looks absolutely fantastic, I hope you agree, especially with the white stencil that we did the last time. I think it looks just that bit extra special. Installation not too difficult. It did take a bit of time because there were quite a few individual steps, including taking the whole bumper off and then having to put it all the way back on again. But following each individual step, it wasn't too difficult. I hope you like that, and I hope you like this little video. Thank you so much for watching. Please do like, share, and subscribe for more content to come very, very soon. Thank you once again. Goodbye.